Hey there, hope you're having a wonderful day. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to create a shooting game, and this game is called Duck Hunt. And basically, this game came out a few decades ago. It was released for the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES, and you would play this game using a zapper, which is a light gun, so you would just shoot at the TV screen. Now for this tutorial, we will not be using that. Instead, you can just shoot at the ducks by hovering your mouse cursor over them. And you can see when you hover the mouse cursor over them, the cursor changes into a target. So we can shoot the duck by clicking. As you can see, a sound effect plays when you shoot the duck. And here we have the dog showing us that we shot 2 ducks. And now there's 1 duck. And now the dog shows us that we shot 1 duck. And yeah, this is the game that we'll be working on in this video. And before we begin coding, I just want to quickly mention that on my YouTube channel, you'll find various coding tutorials, and I have programming courses and game project tutorials on my YouTube channel. And you can also find the list of tutorials on kennyupcoding.com. So here you can see I'm working on a variety of programming courses, and I also have games in Python, Java, and JavaScript. So currently we have Duck Hunt, and in my next tutorial, I'll be working on Frogger. And I also have Pac-Man, Doodle Jump, Flappy Bird, Space Invaders, and many more. So I'm going to continue working on these various game projects. And if you want to stay up to date for new tutorials, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Alright, so the first thing you need to do is click on the GitHub link in the video description below. The GitHub link contains the repository for the completed code as well as the images that we'll be using for this tutorial. And we also have some sound files and this font file. So make sure you go to the GitHub repository to download all the necessary files that we will need for this game tutorial. And then after that, you can create 3 files: index.html, duckhunt.css, and duckhunt.js. Alright, so I have my project over here, and on the left side you can see I have all the images and sound files and the font file in my directory. So this is my index.html. I linked my style sheet, and I also linked my JavaScript. And in my style sheet we have nothing, and we also have nothing in our JavaScript file. So we're going to start with the HTML, and basically all we need to do is add the text for the score. So over here, I'm going to add a paragraph tag, and the ID will be score. And I'm going to set it to 0. And that's all we need for our index.html file. And I can double click on this to open it. And you can see we have our blank HTML file and the score 0 over here. Alright, that's all we need. And now let's add some CSS. And for our styling, we're going to add a background image. So here I'll do body. Background is going to be URL, and the file name is duckhunt-bg-4k. So over here we'll do duckhunt-bg-4k.png. And then we're going to position our image in the center, so background position center. And we don't want the background image to repeat, so here I'll do background no repeat. We also want the background image to cover the entire page, so background size is going to be cover, and background attachment, I'm going to set this to fixed. Now I also want to add the cursor, so here we have a file and it's the target, and this will only appear if we hover over the image, so I'm going to add it for now. And when you use an image file for the cursor, the file has to be relatively small, so here you can see it is 28 by 28 pixels. So over here, I'm going to do cursor URL, and it's going to be /target.png. And here I'm going to do auto. And actually, let's also put / over here. And the reason why I'm putting / is because this is going to be the same directory as our CSS file. So starting from the root of the folder, and I'm going to add a font. So here I'll do @font_face. Font family is going to be, and here we can give our font a name, so I'm going to call it game font. And we need a source, so the source is going to be URL /gamefont.otf. And let's also add some styling for the text, which is the score. So over here, I gave the paragraph tag an ID of score, so we can access this tag using the ID. So over here, I will do #score, and font size will be 30 pixels. Font family is going to be game font. And the text color is going to be white. So now let's refresh the page. As you can see, we have our background image, and the score is using the game font. And if we hover over it, you can see the cursor actually changes into a target. Okay, so we have our CSS. Now let's work on the JavaScript. And the first thing we need to do is add a duck. So over here, I'm going to create a variable to store all the ducks, and this is going to be for an array. So here I'll do ducks, and I'm going to create another variable for the duck count. And I'm just going to assign this 1 for now. In the duck hunt games, we only have 1 or 2 ducks. You don't have to limit to 1 or 2. You can add more if you want, but for now, I'm just going to leave it as 1. And we need to load the images. So I'm going to get the image names and put them into an array. So duck image names, and the names are pretty simple. We have duck-left and duck-right, and these are animated GIF files, and I actually drew all the pixel art for this tutorial myself. So let's add the names of these 2 files to the array. So we're going to put the left one first and then the right one. So over here, we're going to do duck-left.gif for the file extension, and duck-right.gif. And now we need to specify the width and height of the duck images. So the duck image width is going to be 96 pixels, and the duck image height is going to be 93 pixels. So basically, I just scaled down the image to 96 to 93. If you look at the file, we have 270 by 310. So I just scaled it down by some factor. And let's also get the width of our screen. So here I'm going to do game width. It's going to be window.screen.width. And also the game height. This is going to be window.screen.height. For the width, I don't mind where the duck goes, but for the height, I don't want the duck to go past the grass. So this is roughly 1/4 of the screen. So I'm going to change it to 3/4 of the screen height for the game height. So here I'm going to do times 3 divided by 4. So we're going to limit the duck to only stay within this area of the screen. And once we have these variables, let's create a function. So here I'll do window.onload. This is going to be a function. So when the page loads, we're going to call this function, and inside this function, we're going to call add ducks. And let's define the function down here. So add ducks. And here I'm going to initialize the ducks array. So ducks is going to be an empty array. And I'm just going to leave the duck count at 1 for now. Later on, I'm going to randomize it to be 1 or 2. So here I'm going to use a for loop because we can have 2 ducks, but for now I'm just going to hard code it to 1 duck. So for let I is equal to 0, I less than duck count, I plus plus. We're going to create some duck images. And we have 2 images. One is facing left and the other is facing right. So I'm going to use random to decide which image to use. So let duck image name is going to be duck image names at index of math.floor math.random times 2. And basically what this is doing is math.random gives us a number between 0 and 0.9999. We're going to multiply this range by 2. So this becomes 0 to 1.9999. And then we want to call math.floor to get rid of the decimal places. So now the range is going to be 0 to 1. So this is going to give us a random index, 0 or 1, which will give us a random image name. And then now let's create an image tag. So here I'll do let duck image is equal to document dot create element, and here we want an image tag. So this is going to create an image tag like this. And we need to add an image source. So duck image dot source is going to be duck image name. And let's also specify the width and height attributes of this image. So duckImage.width is going to be duckWidth. DuckImage.height is going to be duckHeight. And we don't want the image to be draggable, so here I'll do duckImage.draggable, and I'll set it to false. And we also want the duck image to be placed anywhere on the screen, so we're going to place the image and have it move across the screen by modifying the top and left attributes. So for that, I'm going to need to do duckImage.style.position and set it to absolute. So this is going to allow us to place the image at a specific X and Y coordinate on our screen. And finally, let's add this image tag to our web page. So document.body.append_child duck image. So here we have our web page, and if I refresh, you can see we have our duck. So now let's set the X and Y position of the duck so that it is not over here, and instead we want this duck to appear randomly on our page. Alright, so now that we have our duck image tag, what I'm going to do is create a wrapper for this image so that we can keep track of it and modify the X and Y positioning so that we can move the duck across the screen. So over here, I'm going to add an object. So let duck is equal to an object, and the image is going to be duck image, and I'm going to set an X position, and this refers to the horizontal positioning, so left and right. And here I'm just going to set it as 100. And let's also add a Y positioning, which is vertical, so top and bottom. This is going to be 50. Now let's update the image to use these new positioning. So over here, I'm going to do duck.image, which is going to get us duck.image, which is this image, .style.left is going to be string of duck.x, which is 100, plus px, which is pixels. And we're going to do the same for the Y position. So duck.image.style.top string of duck.y plus px. So this is going to be for the Y position. Alright, now let's save and refresh the page. So over here we have our duck on the left side of our page, and if I refresh, and now you can see the duck has moved. So the X position shifted 100 from the left and 50 from the top. So essentially how this works is we're going to have an X position that tracks its left side, and we'll also use the Y position to track the top side. So this top left corner is going to be the X and Y positioning. So basically, from the very top left corner of our game screen, or our page, which is going to be 0, 0, we shifted the image 100 pixels to the right and 50 pixels down. So throughout the game, we're going to be constantly updating the X and Y positioning and updating the left and top positioning of the image tag. So we're going to use this top left corner to control where this tag is going to appear on the screen. Alright, now what I want to do is randomly position the duck. So over here, we're going to change the X and Y positions to a random number. And since they're both going to use random numbers, I'm going to create a function. So over here, let's create a function called random position, and we'll take in a limit. And here we're just going to return math.floor math.random times limit. So here I'm going to change the X position to random position of game width minus duck width, and for the Y position, random position game height minus duck height. So we're doing game width minus duck width, and that is because we want that to be the limit. So instead of making the game width the limit, so over here, we want to make it minus duck width. So starting over here, this is the limit in the X position. So why is that? Basically, as I mentioned before, the X and Y position refers to the left and top side. So if we set the X positioning to be where the game width is, it's going to start here, and the image is going to be over here, and it's going to be off screen. For that reason, we're going to shift the limit to be game width minus duck width so that it can be over here. So if it does end up over here, then we can draw the duck over here. And we also set the game height to be 3/4 of the window height. So it should be over here, and this is where the grass is. So basically, we want the limit to be game height minus duck height. So instead of appearing over here in the grass, it's going to go up and appear over here. Okay? So over here, I'm going to refresh the page. And you can see the duck is here now. Let's refresh again. The duck is over here. Refresh again. Duck is over here. Here. Okay, so the duck is going to be placed randomly on the screen. Alright, cool. Now the next thing we need to do is move the duck. And for moving the duck, we need a velocity. So velocity is the change in position over time. So since the duck can move in the x and y directions, we're going to need two separate variables for the velocity. So here I'm going to add duck velocity x, and I'm going to make it 5. And duck velocity y, this is also going to be 5. So basically, every frame, the duck image is going to move 5 pixels to the left or right and 5 pixels up or down. So just to quickly explain how velocity works, basically we have this x and y position. And so if you want to go left, this is in the negative x direction. Going right is going to be the positive x direction. Going up is negative y direction. And going down is positive y direction. So this is going to refer to the top left corner of this duck image. So let's say the velocity x and y are both 5. This means that the x position for this image is going to shift to the right by 5 pixels. And we're also moving down by 5 pixels. So the duck is going to move diagonally like so. So it's going to move constantly like this. Okay? So let's add these two properties into our duck object. So over here, I'm going to add velocity x, duck velocity x, and velocity y, duck velocity y. And there's also one thing we need to take into account. Remember, velocity x is positive if we're going right, and negative if we're going to the left. And we have two images, duck going to the left and duck going to the right. So if the duck is going to the left, the velocity should be negative, so negative 5. So over here, I'm going to add if duck.image.source.includes duck image names of index 0. And so this is going to be the image name at index 0. So if you scroll up, the name is duck-left. So since the duck is going to the left, the velocity x should be negative. So over here, we're going to do duck.velocityx, and we're going to set it to negative duck velocity x. All right, so this is the wrapper object that we're going to create for the duck image. And over here, we need to add the duck object to the array. So ducks.push duck. All right, so now the next thing we need to do is move the ducks. So let's scroll up, and over here, I'm going to call another function. And this function is called moveDucks. But for this, I'm going to call this function at an interval. So here I'm going to do set interval moveDucks. And for the interval, it'll be 1000 divided by 60. So this is in milliseconds. So this is 1000 milliseconds, and we're dividing it by 60. So 60 frames. So basically, this is going to be 60 frames per second. So let's define this function. So down here, I'm going to do function moveDucks. And we're going to iterate through all the ducks in the array. So for let I is equal to 0, I is less than ducks.length, I++, let duck equal to ducks at index I. And here we're going to update the x and y position. So duck.x plus equal duck.velocityx, duck.y plus equal duck.velocityy. So this is going to update the x and y position of our object. And we also want to update the actual image tag to reflect the new x and y positioning. So here I'm going to do duck.image.style.left and set it to string of duck.x plus px. So pretty much the same as what we had before over here. And actually I can just copy this for the y position. So basically, we're going to call move ducks at an interval of 60 frames per second, so 60 times a second. And every time we call this function, we're going to iterate through all the ducks and update the x and y positioning and update the x and y position of the tag. So the left and top properties of the image tag. Alright, so we have our duck over here, and now if I refresh the page, you can see the duck is now moving. And the duck actually went off screen. So we need to define some boundaries for our duck. So over here, I'm going to do if duck.x is less than 0 or duck.x plus duck.width is greater than game width. So if duck.x is less than 0, this means that the image will be going off the left side of our screen. And duck.x plus duck.width, this is going to give us the right side of the duck. So if the right side is greater than the width of our screen, that means we have gone off screen on the right side. So remember, the x position refers to the left side and the y position refers to the top side. So if the x position has gone past 0, that means the left side of the duck image has gone past over here, the left side of our screen. And for the right side, we want to compare the right side of the image and not the left side. So to get the right side of the image, we would do x, which is over here, plus the width of the image. So this gives us the right side of the image. If the right side has passed the game width, which is the screen width, then we know that it has gone off the screen on the right side. So if that is the case, we're going to take a step back. So here we're taking a step forward. Now we need to take the step back because we now know that the duck has gone off the borders horizontally. So duck.x minus equal duck.velocityx. And let's also do the same for the y position. So here I'm going to do if duck.y is less than 0, which is the top of the screen, or duck.y plus duck.height. So similarly, duck.x plus duck.width gives us the right side. Duck.y is the top, so if we add the height, this gives us the bottom of the duck. So if the bottom of the duck has gone past game height, we're going to take a step back as well. So duck.y minus equal duck.velocity y. Alright, let's save and refresh the page. Alright, so the duck is moving and so the duck is not stopping. So we have a bug somewhere, so let's see. Duck.y less than 0 or duck.y plus duck.height. Okay, I see the issue. Basically, we don't have a width or height field in our object. So over here, you can see we have image x, y, velocity x, and velocity y. We don't have a width and height. So this should actually be duck width, not duck.width, but duck width. And this should be duck height. Alright, let's save and refresh the page. Alright, so the duck is going down, stopping here, and then moving to the left and stopping here. If I refresh the page, same thing. Let's see if we can get the duck to move to the right side. Alright, there you go. And the duck stops over there. Alright, so the reason why the duck stops is because we take a step forward and then we take a step back. So essentially, the duck x and y positions never change once they are hitting the border of our screen. Now, instead of just stopping, we want the duck to reverse course. So if the duck was going to the left, it should go right. And if the duck was going down, it should go up. So over here, I'm going to do duck.velocityx times equal -1. And this is going to flip the direction. And likewise, down here, duck.velocity y times equal -1. So this is going to make the duck stop and then reverse course. So let's refresh the page. So now you can see the duck goes down, then up, then left, then right and up. And you can see the duck is moving diagonally every time. Now we have one issue, and that is this duck is actually flying backwards because the image we do not update. So we need to update the image to face left or right depending on the new velocity x. Alright, so over here, after we update the velocity x for the duck, I'm going to make a check if duck.velocity x is less than 0. This means it is negative, so it's going to the left. we're going to update the image. So duck.image.source is going to be duck image names at index 0. Else, we're going to do duck.image.source to be duck image names at index 1. Alright, so this is going to update the image based on whether the velocity x is negative or positive, so going to the left or going to the right. Alright, let's refresh the page. And now it's going left, and then it turns around and goes to the right. And then once it hits the right side, it turns around and goes left. Okay? Alright, now the next thing we need to do is actually shoot the duck by clicking on it. So for that, we need to add a click handler for the image tag. So I'm going to scroll up and we're going to add duckImage.onClick, and we're going to assign this a function. So what happens if we click on the duck? We're going to shoot the duck, and when we shoot the duck, it's going to disappear. So here I'm going to do document.body.removeChild this. So this refers to the duck image. And this is going to remove the image tag, but we also want to remove the duck object. So over here, I'm going to do let's remaining ducks, and this is going to be an empty array. And we're going to go through all the ducks for let I is equal to 0, I less than ducks.length, I++, if ducks at index I dot image is not equal to this, remaining ducks dot push ducks at index I. And then over here, we're going to reassign ducks to remaining ducks. So essentially, we're going to remove the tag from the body, and then we're going to remove the duck object that's associated with this tag. So we're going to iterate through all the ducks, and if this duck image is not equal to the one we're trying to remove, then we can keep that duck. So for that reason, I created another array. So we're going to push this duck into this new array and reassign it back to the ducks variable. So basically, we're just filtering out the ducks that we shoot. So I'm going to refresh the page and shoot this duck. Come on. And now the duck is gone. Now the next thing I need to do is increment the score when we shoot the duck. So up here, I'm going to add another variable, score, and set it to 0. And then let's scroll back down over here. When we shoot the duck, I'm going to increment the score, and I'm going to update the score paragraph tag. So we're going to update this tag and replace this 0 with the updated score, and we can access this tag using this ID of score. So here I can do document.getElement by ID score. So this is going to return the paragraph tag, and here I'm going to do .inner HTML, and we'll set it to score. Alright, now if we refresh the page, every time we shoot a duck, it's going to increment the score by 1. Okay, there you go, the score went up by 1. Alright, so this is pretty much the main setup for one duck. Now we can have multiple ducks. So over here, I'm going to add a random number for the duck count. So duck count is going to be math.floor of math.random times 2. And since this is returning 0 or 1, like over here, we're going to add 1. So now the range is going to be 1 to 2. Alright, now let's refresh the page. Now we have 2 ducks. Click on that one and this one over here. Come on. And now the score is 2. And I'm going to refresh the page again. Click on it, and the score goes up by 1. Alright, so now we can shoot the ducks and get score. Now, every time we clear the field of ducks, we wait a bit and then more ducks come. So we're going to recall the function for add ducks. And before that, in Duck Hunt, when you shoot a duck or 2 ducks, the dog appears. So essentially, if you shoot 1 duck, then this image appears. And if you shoot 2 ducks, this image appears. Okay? So we're going to add this dog at the very end after we clear the field. So over here, where we have the ducks array updated, we're going to make a check. If ducks.length is equal to 0, this means we shot all the ducks on the field. I'm going to call add dog. So down here, let's add a function called add dog. And like with the duck, we're going to create an image tag for the dog. So let dog image is equal to document.createElement image. And here we're going to make a check to determine which image we want to use. So if duck count is equal to 1, dog image dot source is going to be dog-duck1.png. And these two images have the same height. So here you can see the height is 380 pixels and 380 pixels, but the width for the images is different. So dog-duck1 is 430 pixels and dog-duck2 is 560 pixels. And this makes sense because this is the difference between 1 and 2 ducks. So you have 1 extra duck, so the image is going to be wider. And I'm going to scale it appropriately. So here I'm going to do dog image.width is going to be 172. Else, this means dog count is 2, in which case we're going to do dog image.source dog-duck2.png, and dog image.width is going to be 224. And for the height, we're going to do dog image.height 152. And like with the duck images, we don't want this image to be draggable, so dog image.draggable. We'll set this to false. And now we need to position the dog image at the bottom of our screen. So over here, I'm going to do dog image.style.position fixed. So instead of absolute, like with the ducks, we're going to do fixed. And this means that the dog image is going to stay in the same place even when scrolling. Now let's specify where we want to place this image. So dog image.style.bottom, and we're going to do 0 pixels. So in our earlier example, we had 100 pixels to the right and 50 pixels down for the duck image. So the 50 pixels down refers to 50 pixels from the top. So if we set the bottom for the dog at 0 pixels, this means that we're going to set it 0 pixels from the bottom. So the bottom of the dog is going to be 0 pixels from the bottom of the screen. And then we're going to do dog image.style.left and set it to 50%. So the dog is going to be shifted 50% of the game width from the left side of the screen. And then finally, we need to add this image tag to the body. So document.body.append child dog image. Alright, now let's refresh the page. We have 2 ducks and this one, come on. And now we have this dog image over here with the 2 ducks. Now let's try to refresh the page again and see if we can get 1 duck. Okay, 1 duck. I'm going to click on it. And there you go, 1 duck. Alright, so once the dog appears, we're going to wait a few seconds and then have the birds fly again. So over here, I'm going to add a function called setTimeout. And this is going to call a function. And in this function, we're going to do document.body.removeChild dog image. So this is going to remove the dog image from the page, and then we're going to prepare to add more ducks. So we're going to call the add ducks function. But we want to wait a bit, so here we're going to wait 5 seconds, which is 5,000 milliseconds. Now let's refresh the page. We have 1 duck, and shoot the duck. And 5 seconds pass. We have another duck, shoot the duck. Come on. And we wait 5 seconds again. And again. Can we get 2 ducks, please? Okay, thank you. Come on. And we have 2 ducks. Okay, and the score is 5. And what I also want to do is add setTimeout for add ducks when we start the game. So I'm going to scroll up, and over here, I'm going to wrap this around a call for setTimeout, and we're going to call add ducks after 2000 milliseconds, which is 2 seconds. All right, now let's refresh the page. And now we wait 2 seconds and we have 2 ducks. Okay. All right, so we have a functional game of duck hunt. Now the only thing we need to add is music. All right, so for the sound files, we have 4, but I'm only going to use 2. One for the duck shot and one for dog score. So adding sounds is actually very easy. So let's start by adding duck shot. So down here where we shoot the duck, I'm going to do let duck shot sound equal to new audio. And here we need to pass in the file name. So this is going to be duck-shot.mp3. And we're just going to do duck shot sound.play. And let's also do the same for when the dog appears. So let's scroll down. And just before we set timeout, I'm going to do let dog score sound equal to new audio dog-score.mp3 dog score sound.play. All right, so that's all we need. And now let's go to our game. So I'm going to refresh, wait 2 seconds, and we're going to shoot this duck. And our score goes up by 1, and we have music playing. Okay. Now let's see if we can get 2 ducks. Okay. Come on. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this tutorial. We have a fully functional game of duck hunt. And I definitely encourage you to make your own shooting game. You can replace the images so you don't have to use the ducks. And you can also add additional features such as timers. So for example, you can have a feature where the player has to shoot the ducks within 5 seconds, otherwise game over. And for that, you can also add chances or lives. So 3 chances to shoot all the ducks within 5 seconds. And you can also add multiple enemies. You can give the enemies health. So right now, it only takes 1 shot for the duck. Maybe you can make it 2 shots for the duck. And of course, instead of making them flying, you can also make them teleport across the screen at random X and Y positions. So this is all up to you. But yeah, that's it for this tutorial. Hopefully you found this tutorial helpful. And if you did, make sure you give this video a like. If you have any questions, let me know down below in the comments. And as always, if you want to stay up to date for more JavaScript game tutorials like this one, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.